So
my apologies. If I could just come in there very quickly, just to be very clear on this. When you made those submissions, does it then mean that when he failed to declare assets and also continues to run foreign bank accounts, dollar accounts, and euro accounts, has he committed any infractions?
You are asking that question?
Yes.
Hello?
I'm asking you the question that has he...
Okay, all right. Okay, you know, I started off by stating a caveat. I'm not going to enter into a determination or an argument over whether there is merit in the allegation made against him or not. That could be sub judice. That's a matter before the court. That matter will have to be determined within the court. I would, in fact, be exposing myself to discipline by my profession if I were to make comments touching upon the merits of the case, including even being in contempt of the court. So I will not go into that. What I can say to you is that for the man who says he's running a foreign account, I doubt very much whether, I've read the charges. That's not what the charges laid against him is. The charge, if you read the Code of Conduct Tribunal Act, the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act, what it says is that running a foreign account is running an account in a bank outside Nigeria. I didn't see any of the 6 count charges where he's alleged to own or have run an account in a bank outside Nigeria. So I can dispose of that very quickly. But whether or not he's guilty of any of those allegations, all I can say is that the constitutional provision is that he is presumed innocent, and the burden of proof is on those who make those allegations against him. And those matters are going to be proved within the context of the judicial proceedings, and not in the press, not in an interview, such as that which I'm giving.
Forgive me for asking this way. Pardon my ignorance. What is the difference between the Code of Conduct Bureau and the National Judicial Council? I ask that because my understanding is that the CCB is about all public officers, and the NJC is exclusively for judicial officers, meaning that the NJC queries you based on your performance as a judicial officer, and the CCB on your act or conduct as a public officer. To the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen any of these allegations against the CJN that impugns on his act as a judicial officer. So am I getting something wrong, sir?
I think you're getting something wrong.
Okay.
Okay, the first thing is that you're right about the scope. The jurisdiction of the Code of Conduct Tribunal or Code of Conduct Bureau. I should be talking about the Code of Conduct Tribunal because there's a difference between the Bureau and the Tribunal. The Bureau is the investigating arm of the under the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act, whereas the Tribunal is the adjudicating arm of the Code of Conduct and Bureau and Tribunal. So, yes, the Code of Conduct Tribunal is more expansive in the sense that it deals with all categories of public officers. But you are wrong in the sense that when you suggest that what is alleged against the Chief Justice is not in connection with his duties as a judicial officer. Look at the charges. You see that in each of the charges, it was said that after he was sworn in as a justice of the Supreme Court. So clearly that is referable and referencing the fact of his capacity as a judicial officer. And then, of course, it is this. And that's the point which I'm eager to emphasize. We must respect the constitutional provision which donates to the judiciary the authority to interpret our laws. We may not agree with them, and often academic writers disagree with what judicial officers have determined. But the statements of judicial officers represent the law of our country and will remain the law of our country until it is reviewed and overruled judicially. So whatever views people have outside of the statements of the judge do not represent our law. It represents the opinions of those people. Now, with specific reference back to the issue in question, the Constitution having donated the authority to interpret the Constitution and our laws to the courts have rendered an interpretation. And the interpretation which the courts have rendered is this, that insofar as judicial officers are concerned, and with regard to the role of any other person in pleading them in criminal proceedings, the first precondition is the NJC is a clearinghouse. You may agree, you may not agree, but please, that is the law of our country. And the President, the Attorney General of the Federation, and every advisor to the President in the executive branch who are at the behest of this trial must respect that. They do have a right to appeal against that decision and agitate their contention in the Supreme Court, but until the Supreme Court gives a decision contrary to the decision of the Court of Appeal, that remains the law of our country, and it must be obeyed.
Well, Mr. Ekujumi, there you go. Says clearly here, it's properly delineated, but as it stands now, proceeding to the CCT without the NJC, he still maintains that it's not the procedure.
No, I think we all listened to him very well, and he concurred with the judgments of the Ganjiwa versus Federal Republic of Nigeria, where the courts clearly stipulated that if you have committed acts outside the discharge of your responsibility as a judicial officer, in this case, the CJN has not been accused of, giving judgment in which he has compromised his office. What we are saying is that the code of conduct clearly stipulates who a public officer is. And the Chief Justice of Nigeria fell into that category, or falls into that category. And the offense he has been alleged to have committed are explicitly stated there, of which he has now been taken to the Code of Conduct Tribunal. I think we must commend the executive, because ordinarily, if the executive was out of line, maybe they would have charged him to a federal high court. But because it is with regards to the constitutional provisions that he should be taken to the Code of Conduct, Bureau or Tribunal, and that is what is taking place. And like you have rightly heard, he concurred with that judgment, only that he was trying to cover up with the caveat that, because the case is in court. I think it...
No, but it's right. If the case is in court...
Yes, the case is... Yes, but people have been preferring all sorts of opinion, even...
It doesn't mean that that's not wrong if you look at the merits of the case.
No, what we are saying now is that we are only preferring opinion, and we have a right to interpret judgment based on our understanding. But
we cannot look at the merits before the courts.
It is the courts that we look at, but as individuals, we can examine it. And, be able, there was a time in this country, even as a layman, looking at a case, you can easily determine how the judgment will go based on the facts and not based on your emotion.
But that's for you, that's for the courts.
I agree that the judgment is by the courts. But in this case, the allegations are very, very clear. What we are saying here is that allegations have been raised against the CJN. And the government has done the needful by arraigning him before the CCT. And okay, look at yesterday, when they went before the CCT, the defense counsel said the CJN was not served personally. And the CCT concurred, even though the prosecuting counsel said we served him because he directed his PA to receive it on his behalf. The CCT chairman said no. What the law says is that he must receive it in person. So that tells you clearly that we need to allow institutions to function. We need to allow.
In this case again, the CCT. A lot of people widely believe, that the CCT doesn't have the jurisdiction to hear this matter. As a matter of fact, from the beginning, it ought to have landed with at the NJC first before anything can be done.
No, Jimba. Cases that involve judicial officers that should go to the NJC.
We need to go to break, but don't worry, we'll come back to this in just a moment. Stay with us.